3.4 and 3.5 is done today, 2 separate chapters. Last week, last work for social, as Alicia said, but very important and interesting things. Okay, so this chapter is all about prejudice and intergroup relations. And we're going to be looking at what the difference is between prejudice, discrimination, and stereotypes. We're looking at the impact that these things can have on the targets, looking at whether we are born with these things or whether it comes from other sources. What are the accuracy scores of stereotypes, for example, in terms of prejudice? How would it affect the inner processes? And then also we're looking at how we can overcome this, which is very, very important. It's never, it is what it is, and you cannot do anything about it. There's always some hope. So yeah, that's just a quick summary of what is done in 3.4. And yes, we're going to do a few activities, and we're going to answer questions. Is the question Q&A? Yes, it's out. So Q&A link is out, so please go there and ask your questions. We did it on a Friday, especially so that you have more time to go through all the content, and so that you're ready with your questions by today. But you do also have Monday and Tuesday still to finalize it. That's why the quiz is only due on Tuesday night before the assessment starts on Wednesday. Okay, should we start off with a little activity?
That would be wonderful.
Okay, so let me get the link for the first activity.
Ladies and gentlemen, just a reminder, please, to make sure that you are muted and your videos are disabled, just to save bandwidth for those who are watching via their phones.
And we do know that there's load shedding in many places, amongst others here with me. So I might, when the power comes back, it might be a little bit of a waffle, but let's try. So yes, there's the first Menti. I'll get started on my side and share. Okay, so again, remember that you are supposed to be prepared for this class. So we're not teaching and then doing an activity. We are simply doing the activities on the stuff that you have already prepared. So let's look at your answers. First, we asked, have you experienced stereotyping, prejudice, discrimination? No, none of these. Now, if you are not quite aware of what these things are, then you might think that you have not experienced it. But if you have gone through the textbook, you'll probably realize that somewhere in your life, at least, you must have experienced some of it. Thank you for the people who are responding. It's always nice to see their interaction. 150 by now. We are more in the room. Please respond and take part of this. Like in all the other chapters of social, we can make it our own. We can use this opportunity to also understand things in our own lives in a much better way. Okay, let's move on to the next one. It's the same link. Now, this is an interesting question, and that we're doing it in Zoom because you are anonymous here. We don't know what you're saying. Honest answer. Do you think racism is still a problem in South Africa? And why do you say this? Why? Please add the why. The second question is, why do you say this? Yes is not explaining to me. Yes, we see this on campus. Okay, why? How do we see it? Yes, it is. Here in Potchefstroom, we are still unwanted. I don't know who you are.
Maybe, sorry, Meanda, just to add, give your reason, give an example. Yes. It's difficult for us to just understand yes and something broad such as Potchefstroom or Mafikeng. Tell us why the example that you're referring to.
Let's see, some more answers. Old habits die hard for some generations. Yes, I think that is valid. Yes, because we have to treat each other equally. And I assume that you feel like it's not happening. Racism will never go away because there'll always be people that think they are better than others. I don't know if that is exactly racism. If you look at the definition of racism, it doesn't mean we think we're better than others. You know, I can also think I'm better than somebody who's the same race as me. There are many traditional households that teach the younger generations their beliefs. That's a very interesting thing. If we want to break it, we need to break the way we act and show the model. I love teaching this because you guys, the young people who are here, you can make that change. You can be the models for the next generations instead of being the models that you saw. When we see this on campus, residents, there's a lot of old hatred and disrespect that spills over in new generations. Yes, we are not, we cannot dispute apartheid. Apartheid was very evil in very many ways. And although it's almost 30 years post-apartheid, as this one says, there's this old hatred and disrespect that we still have to deal with. Policies ain't taken serious, and people who discriminate ain't punished. Well, that is an interesting question. So should there be punishment, and which punishment should there be? Or should it be a social change, the change of individuals that can make a difference, but towards blacks and whites? Yes. Some people seem to think that racism is only from white people. All races and groups can show racism. Thank you, everyone, for the answers. I think this clearly shows why this, I've only seen yeses, why this chapter is so extremely important. And sometimes, in South Africa especially, we are scared to touch it. You know, like, no, let's not talk about racism. We should talk about it. We should learn about it. We should ask ourselves, what can we do? How can we change it? How can we even reflect upon our own thinking, our own behavior, so that we can build and work towards a better South Africa? So it is important that we talk about it, and it is important to kind of put on the jacket of protection if you are super sensitive, to say, this is not a space where I'm going to say, you see. Let's talk about it. Let's try to understand it. Let's not try to be emotional, but let's see what we can do about it. So thank you, everyone, for the participation, because I think that clearly shows why this chapter is so extremely important in South Africa. Any questions on this, ladies who are reading the questions?
I'll quickly check.
So this first outcome is about the difference between stereotypes and discrimination and and prejudice. I don't think it's really rocket science, and people who have attended as classes, they would already have done a little bit on it. If you haven't attended a class yet, please do, because we're doing some other activities in there too.
I think, Meanda, at this point in time, we only have 7 responses on the Q&A link, which is quite concerning. So, ladies and gentlemen, please take this opportunity to ask your questions, to clarify anything that may be uncertain to you, because this is also the last opportunity for you to do so in a live session with all of us present. But yes, the 2 questions for now, Meanda, the first one asks, how does prejudice impact a person's mental health?
So this is not really a question for this outcome. It's in a later outcome where it specifically talks about, it's in 7, I see, they describe the impact of prejudice on the target. Okay. So I think we will get to it then. That will be a more appropriate place to talk about it. But yeah, and is there a second question?
The second question asks for examples of prejudice and stereotype. And if you have been in class, then we have a lot of good examples and discussions related to this. So I don't think it's necessary that we discuss any examples at this point in time.
Actually, Alicia recently had an experience where that she can share with us in terms of how she saw this in her real life. Alicia, do you want to share with us your experience?
Yes, I can. So I recently went to a store. It was in another town, But then I was looking for something in the aisle, and I was walking up and down and I couldn't find it. And a guy working at the store came up to me and that he had facial tattoos. So at first I was quite surprised that he was the one working and actually offering in his assistance, and I could notice that I am maybe prejudiced towards people with facial tattoos. You kind of have this idea about them, not expecting them there. So I could definitely identify us and them in myself at that moment. And actually, he challenged that view, that stereotype I have, because he went above and beyond to help me. He even phoned the other store to find out if they have the item that I was looking for. So yeah, sometimes I think most of the time we can actually disprove those stereotypes and prejudices we hold when we are in contact with that stereotype.
Thanks, Alicia. That's a great example because you were able to, and I hope that the other students will, all the students will be able to do that, to say, oh, clearly I have a stereotype that this type of person will act in certain ways. And I'm even finding a little bit of a prejudice here. I have a negative feeling about this person. I'm already expecting certain things, but you didn't discriminate and you didn't act. You didn't say, oh, sorry, no, I'll find somebody else to help me because I already know that you won't. You gave it a chance, and that interaction, it's very important. We're going to talk about that later. That interaction allowed you to now get more information and see, okay, no, I think I need to fix some things that I'm thinking. I need to rethink my stereotypes and my prejudice. And that's an amazing opportunity. That's how we grow. That is how we can grow in terms of the things we think and the things we feel and how we act. Thank you.
Thank you, Meanda. And I think something that I'd like to add is in psychology, they call it a blind spot. We all are human. We all have human tendencies and we all do have blind spots. I don't think anyone does not have any blind spots. And it's always it's a good experience to do some introspection and identify your blind spots and actually work towards changing those things and being aware of them, especially when it comes to prejudice, discrimination, and stereotyping.
Morning, colleagues and students. Sorry I was a bit late. I had technical difficulties on my side. But yes, I just want to add, before maybe we move to the next outcome quickly, when you read, Meanda, about how there was one mentee that said, we learn from our parents how to discriminate and judge other groups. And this is something that I spoke about also in class, that one of these days we are all going to be grandparents, and it is upon us. What are we going to share into the next generation? Are we going to now analyze what we are exposed to and make our own decisions about how we are going to treat others and groups? Or are we now going to follow on what we were previously told in terms of prejudice and stereotypes that we have in our communities? So I think that that is a good space to start, to ask yourself, if now I'm a grandparent, what is it that I want to teach my family and my next generation? Is it something that will bring different people together, or would it be something that breaks people apart? So I just wanted to say that. And I see on our side, Meanda, there isn't other questions. So I think if you don't have any other activity planned for this outcome, let me just make sure.
Yes, I posted the activity for the next outcome. I think it is important to move since we have two chapters to go through. So in the next outcome, what it's about is the effect, and this is kind of linking to that previous question too, the effect that it has. Now, we also do a similar activity in class where we can hear everybody's ideas. But in this one, we are specifically talking about, and that is xenophobia. So the question is, why is xenophobia such a problem in South Africa? So xenophobia, for those who might not know, when we have certain stereotypes, certain prejudices, and we discriminate against people simply because they are not South Africans. Why is it such a big problem? That's an interesting point, because Black people are often being racist unknowingly. And this is not, I mean, if we talk about racism, it's specifically between two different races. Yeah, it's between two different groups, sure, people who are not South African, wherever they come from. Some foreigners are just dangerous to our children and safety. That seems like a stereotype. Is that true? I know you're saying some, but does that mean we now have to be negative about all people, all foreigners? Because South Africa is poor and cannot afford to accommodate people from outside. Again, does that mean that, does that give us the right to treat people in a different way? People are prejudiced against foreigners, thinking they steal our jobs and lands, so people act on it because of fear. Interesting. Fear is driving them, probably because of our racist past, apartheid. I would like to understand that one. How do you link the apartheid to, apartheid was very much about skin color. It was very much about races. Now we're talking about Black people and Black people, foreigners. They're just not South African. They just speak a different language. But we also have many different languages in South Africa. So why? Why are we? Mainly because we have people from other parts of the country who are here for the wrong reasons. It is not fair to those who are not causing troubles. Thank you. That is showing some insight. There might be some people, but we have South Africans who are crooks too. In every group, you will find those ones who are problematic and who are doing all kinds of evil things. And that doesn't mean we can decide everybody's like this. The whole group is like this. And that's exactly what stereotyping does. Remember that we are lazy. We want to decide all Nigerians are like this, all South Africans are like this, but it doesn't work like that. It's not as simple. Alex, if you see anything that you want to bring up, is harming people?
None from my side, Meanda. I think you covered the important points.
Okay, so thanks for everyone who participated again. And we have foreigners in our class, and that's why we're doing it on Zoom and not in class, so that you are kind of you are anonymous when you are giving these responses. I think it is important to ask ourselves, just as Alicia's example went. She was willing to share that blind spots that she realized. I think it's important for all of us to ask ourselves. We're not now talking about the economics of it or anything of that. We're just talking about human to human. Why do we have certain ideas? Why do we have certain prejudices? Are they justified? Are they fair? And is it okay to treat foreigners in a certain way just because they're not South African? I think it's important. And in class, we will discuss a different target group, and then we will also look at the way that it impacts them in a more detailed way. So please do attend class if you have. Any specific questions on this section? Can we move on?
I think, Meanda, the only one for outcome 3, the only question listed here is asking for an example of stigma by association.
And the answer is come to class. So we are actually talking about stigma and stigma by association in class. So please attend class so that you can really understand what we mean with that. Very important question. So please do attend class.
Right. I think if there are no other questions for outcome 2, we can possibly move on to the next activity you have for us, Meanda.
Yes. So let me click the link. So the next part, what we find in the next part is something that's important. It is about how do we get people to work together and to get over their prejudices. So an important thing, and I will share it now, an important aspect is superordinate goals. Now, what we thought of doing is to create a superordinate goal for you as a class to work towards, so that you can feel what we are talking about. So at this point, we are going to look at the number of people who are here, 530. And on YouTube, Megan, please jot down the number.
Perfect.
And then we are now going to post the register. We are creating a superordinate goal for you. What must happen is that every single person who's here and who's on YouTube, who's receiving this link now, you must complete it, because these numbers should tally. What is in it for you? If you manage to actually do this, now a superordinate goal, let me just remind you, is something that the whole group must do. Unless everybody work together, you can't reach the goal. So the goal is, should everybody work together, we will give you the chapters where the case study questions will come from for the Unit 3 test. Remember, the Unit 3 test will only be written in November, in exam time, but it's the final test. So up till now, and even for Unit 2, you don't know where the questions will come from for the long questions. Come from, if you can do this, and you can all sign, and the numbers will tally. Okay, so
Amanda, before you carry on, I am being bombarded with a lot of direct messages. Thank you very much for making us aware that it's not open. It is open right now. So for those of you who have messaged me, please stop messaging me. I'm going crazy over here, my Zoom. We have opened up the register, and the register asks for a keyword. And the keyword for today, Meanda has been speaking about the superordinate goal. So the keyword will be superordinate.
Superordinate, thank you. Yes. This is very important and can play a big role in South Africa. So this is what the Menti is also about. Which superordinate goals can you think of that all South Africans can work towards? Now, why it is important is often in South Africa, and we have so many different diverse groups in South Africa, that it becomes a thing of us and them. Whether it's races, whether it's groups, we have different ethnicities. It becomes, we are struggling to work as a group together. But according to research, if we have superordinate goals that bring us together, and even in this case that we are trying to recreate for you, different campuses, different people, so many students, if we all work together, we can get to that goal. I really hope for your case that you can work together so that you can get that little bit of guidance for the last test, which is very important. Okay, so if we look here, which superordinate goals can we look at? Equality towards all. So we can work towards having that, creating jobs. We should get to know each other. That is the goal. Okay, remember, this should be a goal. A superordinate goal means everybody must be involved to make this work. So yeah, maybe get to know each other. We all should take the time to get to know each other. We should all try to understand each other background. Oops, this is now stuck on my side. I don't quite know why. Stop sharing quickly and see if I can get it to work again. I think it might be my internet that's still slow because of load shedding.
Meanda, while you're
Yes?
sorting that out on your side, I see on the register now, it's only 153 people. And I just want to encourage them. This is for the whole group. You know, if you don't work together, like Meanda is explaining, then it can be a problem. Remember the test, you might get assistance with where the questions are. So this is a group effort, and the outcome will be if we all work together. So I just wanted to remind everyone looking at the responses.
Yes, indeed. I'm sorry, colleagues, my power just went off, so on again, so everything is freezing at the moment. I think it will just take a few minutes to settle down again. Are there any specific questions?
So only question, Meanda, I do see for outcome 3, debate the innate versus cultural causes. The question asks, please provide an example of the law of least effort. And I know we touched on that in class as well, but maybe you can just give a brief overview of that again.
Yeah. So that law is talking about, am I still here? Things are happening on my side. So that law is about the fact, and we have seen it in other chapters as well, that we are lazy, we are misers, we are cognitive misers, and we don't want to think too much about, okay, this is the person in front of me, let me get to know this person. We want to make little groups and then say, okay, now I know who you are because you belong to this group, and I know 1, 2, 3 things about this group, so therefore I understand you. That is what we're talking about with that law, because we don't want to put in too much effort. We want to just have it quick. It's going back to that cognitive misers. So yes, that's what it's about. Categorization, the social categorization, and all of that. I'm not sure whether I'm still online or not.
We can hear you, Meanda, but you are just a frozen picture. So we hear your voice, we just can't see your face moving though.
Okay, I hope it's going to calm down now. Everything is happening here because it's connecting back to the main internet.
Yeah. Megan, while we are still here, I see there's a question on the chat about test 2. And I want to just indicate to everyone that you must put all your admin questions at the last part of the Q&A, but we will send out an announcement about test 2 sometime during the day. So look out for that. It will have clarity on how test 2 is going to work out. So, yeah. Yes.
I am not aware where I am or where I'm not.
You are. We can see your back.
Everything is hanging still on my side, so yeah, I can't really access anything. I think the system just needs a second. Maybe you can look at the and any other questions from this activity still?
No, I think we are done with outcome 3, and maybe let's move to outcome 4 if there are any questions. And while your internet is getting up again, maybe we can discuss some of these. And one of the questions asks about hostile sexism and benevolent sexism, and what are the difference in related to an example.
Yeah, that is actually something that we do not address in class. So I think it is something that we can talk about here. So the thing is with stereotypes that they are not necessarily always negative. They might be positive stereotypes as well. Now the example they use in the book to kind of illustrate this, that there are positive stereotypes and negative stereotypes, but that the positive ones, the so-called positive ones, could also be harmful, is they're talking about the difference between hostile sexism. So reminder, sexism is when you are now having certain ideas and feelings about someone just because they belong to the group of females, the group of males. So hostile sexism in this type of situation would be that the guys are looking at girls in a derogatory way. So girls are not as good as guys in all kinds of different ways. On the other hand, so that's a negative one. On the other hand, benevolent sexism is now thinking, oh yes, girls are special. We should treat them special. We should open the door for them. I mean, they're princesses. But in a way, you are also putting me in a box by saying that I'm a girl and therefore I am in this way. Therefore, I'm not strong. You must help me carry this chair. You must do this for me. And it can still have an influence on me as a woman, because I'm limited in terms of what I'm allowed to do just because I'm a woman. So it is supposed to be a positive stereotype, but it can still be have a harming effect on me as the woman. So that's an example of the specifically hostile sexism and benevolent sexism in
Right. I see all of you are still here, but Meanda is gone. So I assume that her internet is probably lagging again. Sorry for that, guys. I think load shedding is really a frustration to all of us, but hopefully you all understand the difference between benevolent and hostile sexism. So benevolent is more positive in terms of I'd like to help the different gender group. So it's not necessarily negatively toned, but it is still a form of sexism because you place them into gender groups, for example, where hostile sexism would be more negatively toned in terms of you are negative towards these people within a specific gender group. All right.
Yeah, thank you for emphasizing that, Megan, because I see in outcome 4, those were mostly the question about the difference between the two.
Yes.
And there isn't any other question besides explaining and giving examples of hostile and benevolent sexism.
Right.
So thank you for that. I'm not sure if Meanda still had a few activities planned for outcome 4. Now that
I think outcome 3 we are done with now, but outcome 4 definitely there is an activity, but I know that it is a mentee, and the mentee we don't have access to it. Meanda made it, so I am going to I wonder if I should open the chat for this, but I'd like you to think of stereotypes about a certain group that you belong to. And remember, in class we also said you can belong to different groups. It doesn't necessarily have to be a racial group, for example. It can be various different groups. So maybe take some time to reflect on certain stereotypes about the group that you belong to. And I'm going to open the chat that you can share some of these stereotypes. Colleagues, you're just going to have to help me definitely to read all of them because I'm sure they are going to stream in it now. But write down typical stereotypes about the group that you belong to, and please also mention which group you belong to so that we know how to relate the two. So the chat is open right now. You can start sharing your ideas there in terms of the typical stereotype about a certain group you belong to, and remember to please add what this group is. So I know this was a mentee, so all of you would have been able to see it on a mentee, and those of you on live stream right now, we will just mention them because I know you also can't necessarily see what is the chat on Zoom. But some of these coming in, thank you for all your examples. Blondes are dumb. That is a typical stereotype that blondes usually, and there are a lot of blonde jokes. Actually, women are bad drivers. Yes, that is definitely a stereotype that we have heard before. Colored people are violent and don't have teeth. That is also a very common stereotype, especially in Cape Town as well. I don't know if any of you colleagues would like to read some of these coming in.
I see one, people saying people who wear glasses are smart.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an assumption or a stereotype. It sounds almost like a positive one. They're smart, but it's not necessarily what the truth. Everybody can be smart.
Another one that also came up in the class is a woman's place is in the kitchen.
Yes.
And that is quite common. I see a lot of people talk about that a woman's place is in the kitchen, and that's not always the case. Now we are definitely women and we are not in the kitchen at this moment. So just to show that it's just a stereotype and that's not always the case. Women are more in corporate world, they are working, they are in the kitchen as well, but not only in the kitchen.
I see a lot of these, and remember, we also mentioned this in class, but these are explosive topics, and the idea of sharing your thoughts is not necessarily to step on someone's toes or offend anyone. This is just to broaden your perspective on what these group think and occurrences happen, and a lot of these things that are mentioned are possibly politically inclined. And once again, there's no right or wrong. We are just discussing certain stereotypes that we have encountered. And some of these, I hear that all white people are racist, and that EFF members are violent. So you stereotype one group and all of them run through the bar. I see on Zoom, some people say, Sotho people, the stereotype is that my language group eats horses. That's really interesting. I don't know if one of you colleagues have come across that stereotype. I've never heard of that one before.
It's the first time I hear that. It's quite interesting.
All right.
No. And the common one, Muslims are terrorists. I think, like Megan says, we know some of these stereotypes are things that we know about, we hear about. It's not necessarily to say it's your own personal opinion, but it's out there in society, and it's influenced by so many things, you know. So I think that is interesting to see everybody's replies, Megan. And
yes.
Yeah, so basically.
Yes. And
Yeah,
I think what is important about all of this, thank you everyone. I'm going to close the chat. I think we have experienced the gist of it, but we see that it's not necessarily only racial groups that are experiencing stereotypes. Here are gender groups, here are a various amount of groups that are experiencing certain stereotypes. And more or less think about, take some time to reflect on, have you possibly ever been experienced or exposed to negative stereotypes about groups or races on social media? Because social media is inclined to definitely paint a certain picture of a certain group, and that allows us to be exposed to these stereotypes, and then we start believing these stereotypes. So think about that. I think for the sake of time, we're not necessarily going to open the chat for discussion with regards to that, but think about how your exposure to social media actually influenced your stereotypes and whether they are positively or negatively inclined. In class, we will talk a little bit more about positive stereotypes. So be sure to come to class to experience. Remember, stereotypes don't necessarily always have to be negative. They can be positive as well. So come to class and then we see what we have there. So I think possibly if there are no questions for outcome 4, any remaining questions, we can move over to outcome 5.
Yes. And Megan, I don't know, I have organized one of the mentee from Leander for outcome 5, and then we can do that with the group. I'm gonna drop the link now. Let me just copy it, and then I'll share my screen so that we can. The question now, we are focusing on outcome 5, and we are talking about that scapegoating. And the question in the mentee, let me change from everyone, let's see this. The question in the mentee is, have you blamed other people for failures or problems in your life? Have you, we are focusing on this scapegoating. We want to talk about scapegoat theory, which talks about blaming other people for your misfortunes and attributing negative outcomes to other people and not necessarily taking responsibility for that. So let me quickly share my screen so that you can see the
and remember, this is anonymous. So please be honest and remember that once again, there's a wide array of things that you could blame people for your misfortunes. So have there been any situations? If so, which ones? It will be interesting to see as soon as Nkele shares his screen what comes up. For those of you who have not completed the register just yet, I'm going to leave it open for another about 5 minutes and then I'll close it. So this is your final warning to please fill in the register. If I close it, we are not going to open it again. So please make sure that you do fill it in as soon as you can, because it will be closing in about 5 minutes time. And for those of you still asking, the keyword is superordinates. All right.
Okay, have you blamed other people for your failures or problems in life? I see most people say yes. And I don't know if you can maybe give a reason why. To be honest, yes. So it would have been nice to see it as a percentage, but I see a lot of people say yes, they have done it. I always blame my mother. Not that I can remember, but I think so. Yeah, I have blamed a friend for why I failed at it. Yes, I have blamed a friend for why I failed the test. I wonder how did your friend contribute to that? One of the hardest things is to take responsibility, but it's liberating. And this is very, very important part, you know. Sometimes we do that. We blame other people because we do not want to take responsibility for our failures. And not generally unless it is a direct consequence of someone's action. So also, this is very important, you know, taking responsibility and consequences, you know. We tend to scapegoat because we want to avoid, you know, taking responsibility and dealing with consequences. I have blamed my teacher for failing my history exam in matric. Did you study? Were you ready? Yeah, Alicia, I don't know if you can see your colleagues. Can you see anything else? I don't know. Oh, Megan is still here as well.
I am.
Okay. So a lot of people do. Yes, my sleeping problems are because people, okay. So it's interesting to see that we have done it at some point, and thank you for being honest and not being feeling like you have to present yourself in a specific way, because it can happen that sometimes, like this person says, yes, sometimes I do blame other people. And like I mentioned, it's easier if the error is outside of who we are, because it's not easy to always take responsibility, although necessary, but it's always easy for us to put the blame on somebody else.
And I
So
think
thank you for sharing that. Yes, I'm going to stop sharing while you are just explaining that, Megan.
just for those of you who have not been muted, please remember to mute yourself. But I think that ties in, and these examples tie in very well with something that we have discussed in class before called the self-serving bias, where you take credit for success. So if things go right or good for you, you say, yes, this is me, this is all me. And when things start going wrong, you refuse the blame. So then you start blaming other people for your failures and your problems. And I think maybe this is where we can leave off with regards to outcome 5 in this chapter. Mianda also asked, she just messaged me and she asked that we can carry on possibly with your section, Alicia. Then as we carry on with your section, we will just come back to what Mianda has planned, because I see she has a lot of mentees and an exciting little quiz for all of you, and I don't want you to miss this. So maybe we can carry on with Alicia's chapter, and then which is groups, and then from there on forward, if you are done, we can just finish off with Mianda's section, if that's all right with you guys, colleagues.
Yes,
That's
perfect.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you so much, Megan. So just, I think Alicia will maybe just introduce it. I know that she also has some fun activities for this next chapter. We are talking about groups, and this was it was very interesting in the class to have conversations about groups. So yeah, over to you, Alicia. You can,
Thank you, Nicole.
start with the groups. Yes.
Yes. So if you look at 3.5, it's all about how people function in groups. We're going to look at how people cooperate or have experience conflicts within groups, and also some decision-making theories in groups. And then lastly, power for people and the effect of that that it has on the powerful person. Okay, so let's kick off with the mentees. I'm going to focus in the first. There we go.
Maybe Alicia, tell them what this mentee is all about. Give them some background while they go over to it.
Okay, so we just want to see how many groups you maybe belong to. Oh, sorry guys. You just find the right one. Okay.
So for those of you watching on YouTube, the question is, I just posted the mentee link as well. The question is, how many groups do you belong to? And remember, like we mentioned, groups can be totally different. It doesn't necessarily have to be racial or gender. It can be a church, family, friends, a class, your hostel, sports teams, anything.
Yes. So I see most of you say 3 to 5 groups that you know of. Sometimes we even, I think, belong to bigger groups that we're not so aware of, that we discover throughout life. So groups, yes, have different norms and rules. I don't know if there's any questions about groups in Google Form.
Let me quickly check for you. I don't have it open right now, Kelly. I don't know if you do.
I do have it. Let me minimize this and go to questions. But it's interesting to see the stats there, Althea. I see most people only have more or less 3 to 5 groups. And I think just to make it clear, I mean, we can belong to different types of groups, like church, school, friends. Those are also groups that we function in. And there's people with more than 15 groups. So that's quite interesting. So the questions of this.
I think maybe possibly just to add, sorry, Nikele, is some of you saying you only belong to 3 or 5 groups. I think it's important to go sit and think about the groups that you belong to, because everywhere you move, you belong to a certain circle of people. And someone on Zoom just said to me, you can label yourself 1,000 different ways, and you are able to put yourself into more than 15 groups. And remember, belonging to only 3 groups, it would be your gender, your race, and your family name, which is already 3. And I'm sure you don't only belong to then just the 3 of those groups. You are part of a study course, you're part of a group of friends, you are part of a sexuality group, and these groups start tallying up to a larger amount. So hopefully you guys are able to distinguish between what groups and belonging to a group actually means, and then you are able to see that you belong to more than 3 or 5 groups.
Thank you, Megan. Yeah, so groups are actually it's a very wide term. It's not just a specific group. We can belong to groups because we share a specific goal, or we share a type of identity, or we just like spending time together. And so it's a very broad definition. So I also think we should challenge ourselves to go and think what our groups are, just to take one day and see where this day takes you. Maybe you know a few other groups. Thank you, guys.
Okay. There's just one question. It's about how can we make people function well in different groups? And yes.
All right. So we touched on that also a bit in class. So actually, we tend to think that diverse groups are good for us. When we work in groups, we think they are very effective. But what research has shown is that we tend to struggle to cooperate well within groups. So that links with outcome 2 a bit. And if you go to class, you learn more about that. It's kind of a trade-off. So there are pros and cons. And so it quite depends on what type of group you find yourself in, if you guys can work well together or not. But the basis is, I think, what we found in theory is that if there's individual roles within a group and those roles work together within a system, that seems to be the best way to work well and efficiently.
Yes, and if I can just say, you know, for a group to work also effectively, it needs to function like a well-oiled machine where every part does its part. If you have a group and other people are, you know, leaning on others, it's not going to work effectively. So like what you're saying, Alicia, that the role that you play in the group plays a big part on how the group is going to function effectively. And the values that group share also, they play a very big part. And for the group to work, it is interdependent between the members of the group so that the common goal can be achieved. So yeah, thank you so much for that, Alicia. Yes, if we can continue. There isn't other questions on my side. I don't know if Megan can see anything.
None.
We
Okay,
can-
so I've posted another mentee for this outcome. So this is all about the de-individuation topic. So it's an outcome one, but as well as one of the other outcomes. But I thought we'll discuss it here because it's briefly mentioned in the first outcome and then again. So you might find it twice in the lessons as well. So I think it's good to talk about that. Go and have a look. And let's see what we find.
Can I ask other people to please mute the background noise? Please mute your chat, your screen and your sound, please. Thank you.
Okay, so the mentee is asking, would you steal a cell phone? And I see the majority is voting no. 85% is voting no. 15% says yes. So it moves to 14% now. Okay. Let's move to the next mentee and see if this changes. All right, so it's still the same link. It's not just the second question. Would you take a phone if you were in a group of 500 people marching into a shop and everybody else is taking one? Would you then take one? So you can choose yes, no, yes if I know I won't be caught. If you know there's no cameras and you're not identifiable, would you take one? If your friend is taking one, if the other 500 people are all taking one, would you?
Interesting.
Very interesting. I'm looking at the group that says, yes, if I know I won't be caught.
Yeah.
I'd like to maybe draw that back to a class activity we did. And I don't know if all the other campuses did this class activity, but I don't know if you guys remember us asking you if you were invisible for a whole day, what would you do? And a lot of the responses that we received were more, this was when we were discussing antisocial behavior. Remember, antisocial behavior is anything that is undesirable for society. And the majority of your answers actually revolved around antisocial actions and antisocial behavior. And that just goes to draw back to the phenomenon that we discussed in class called de-individualization, which means that you lose a part of your individuality when you are part of a group. And I think this indicates it really, really well, knowing that because I'm part of this 500 group of people, I won't be caught because, or I will steal this because I know I won't be caught. My individuality won't be in the crossfire.
Yes. Yeah, so it's quite interesting. It seems like now about 60% would take a phone. If we put those together, it's the ones that don't know, that would, if they know they won't be caught, and the ones who just say yes, as opposed to the ones saying no, they won't take that phone. Thank you, guys. I think that illustrated the individuation very well. And that brings us to some other examples. I don't know if you guys heard of the time where students actually protested and burned down a building and a car on the Mafeking campus. So that happened a few years ago, for example. So this happens when we are part of a group and we lose our sense of self-awareness and individual accountability because we are in this group doing a specific thing. We just follow. And another example was, for example, last year with the riots in KZN after Zuma was arrested, where lots of businesses were attacked in a way and just looted, and 72 people died. And I'm not sure if there's a bigger number, but that was one of the numbers that I saw in an article, which is quite scary to think of a group that can lose their individuality to such an extent where they hurt others and just break down a whole community. Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions on that from the students?
I think the only questions that I can see, Alicia, is asking how can we reduce conflict between groups, and I think that we also touch on and discuss in class. So it's definitely it's a good, and it's got to do with the certain hypotheses that we discuss. So I think it would be good if you do come to class to answer that question. And the other question asks, what is wrong? What are the wrong things that causes conflicts between people and groups? And I think that touches on Mianda's part as well, focusing on discrimination, stereotyping, and prejudice, because those are the things that start causing conflict, and then those things give rise to various arguments. But I think for the sake of time, possibly we can continue to the next outcome, because I wonder if time is going to catch up on us.
Yeah.
Yes, let me quickly get back on ready for you guys. So I think section 3.5 and 3.4 is linked well together. That's probably why they are in one section. But you can cross-refer to them all the time with what we just did about discrimination and prejudice also.
Sorry, colleagues, I'm back. It took the system a while to adjust from load shedding to online, but I'm glad you went on with groups. I think let's quickly finish groups and then we'll get back to what we haven't done of the previous chapter.
Yes.
We're glad you're back, Mianda.
We are currently on outcome number 2 of groups.
Okay, great.
Okay.
I see Alicia posted a link. For those of you watching on YouTube, here it comes as well.
Okay. So, oh, you guys, wrong one. I'm so sorry. A bit rusty.
Maybe you can give them an idea of what the question is.
Okay,
While you
so
are...
the question is, I think, do you like group work in modules? So I think you guys have the right one, it's just you to share the right one.
So the question, maybe think about it a little bit. Do you like group work in your modules? So there are a few options. No, not at all. Yes, I love it. Depends on the task and depends on the group.
That's quite interesting.
Very.
I'm not
Only
saying not
6.
at all.
Only a few people who love working in groups. That's interesting. I wonder why and what the dynamics are. It would be interesting to understand why.
Yes, I think that touches on some topics in the textbook as well, like things like social loafing or the bad apple effect. I think people have experiences in groups where they maybe feel like others don't do their part, or they're not so dependable. Things like that, I think, come up when I think about groups sometimes. Don't know, it would be interesting hearing what they think. So some say it depends on the task, and some say it depends on the group. Only a few says, yes, I love it.
This also links to an activity we'll do in class. So if you've been there, you will know that we already discussed it. If you haven't, come and then we'll give a little bit of a different flavor to this question as well.
Yes. And this question has a second part as well. So you can move on to the next question. So give an example that one time you were a social loafer.
Maybe we should just remind them what a social loafer is again.
Yes. So a social loafer is that person in the group that depends a lot on the others to do the work, and they kind of just hide away and not really do their part because they know that the group will stand in for them. Okay, there's our first one. I think in Afrikaans we would call you a flippy. No, somebody is very responsible and does their part. I've never been one. It happens often in a group assignment. Okay. I've never been in physics class. I wonder. Okay. I come up with excuses like I'm sick or the network.
Thank you for the honesty.
When my hostel sings.
For the record, I was not a social loafer earlier. I really had issues.
I believe I will be a social loafer now, colleagues. I have another meeting I need to rush to. So thank you guys, and yeah, all the best.
Thanks, Nkele.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. All right. When I'm not list for work, so when you're not in the mood for work. Somebody said they never had the privilege of being a social loafer. So I think that's also true. If you have a good sense of responsibility, you tend not to be one. But
or if you don't have
a group that challenges you to become one day.
Yeah, I think it also depends on the group. So if you are the strongest in the group, and you don't have other strong people that can take the lead so that you can disappear, I think it talks about that when I've not been in such a group that I can say, okay, you guys go on. I trust you. I will just stand here in the background, loafing. It depends on the group.
Yes. Thank you for these wonderful inputs, you guys. I'm going to stop the Nancy and let's continue to the next one. If there's no questions about outcomes 2.
Yes, I think a quick example that I just want to, or clarification that I want to just give, the social loafer is also called the free rider problem. And that is very much linked to the type of transport they have in Europe. So it is different in South Africa, and maybe it's difficult for you to understand if you don't understand the transport system. So in Europe, for example, you can just get on a tram. There's nobody asking for your money or your ticket. You get into a tram, and then there's a little gadget there where you should either scan a card or insert your little ticket so that it can be stamped. But nobody's checking. You must just do that. Well, there could be checkers coming in every now and then randomly to see whether you actually did it. But if they don't come, nobody would know that you are a free rider. So you're actually not paying, but you are riding. And so that's where this situation or this name comes from, that you can actually be riding without having paid. Okay, so I just wanted to explain that a little bit.
Thank you, Leanna. And I think the other one that links to this topic is the bad apple effect, which is similar to the social loafer, but it means that more people become bad apples. And because there are some loafing, more people start loafing. Because if you see your friend is not doing their part, why should you be the one that brings everything to the table? So you also start loafing.
And that's why we want to get rid of the bad apples. So if we see there's one loafer in our group, we would rather get them out of the group before it, kind of jumps to all the other people.
Yes, or we want to pull them up so that they can do their best selves.
Yes.
Okay, no questions. I think then we can move on to outcome 3.
There aren't any questions, Alicia. You are more than welcome to move on.
Okay, so you guys can go onto the link for the Mentee. Let me just start this one. So this one is about working in groups. Have you stayed silent about a good idea you've had in a group because the group seems set on another idea already? So the options are no, I shared my idea with the group, or yes, I rather followed the group's idea. You didn't tell them your good idea.
This talks about group dynamics, and group dynamics will depend on the group. But here we clearly see that the dynamics caused you to say, Let me just be quiet about my own.
Yes. This is all about not creating conflict. We rather adjust to what the group wants, and we do that. Yeah, so to save the atmosphere and to ensure group cohesion. Yeah, so most of you are exactly in line with what the theory says. So yes, I rather follow the group idea instead of sharing your good idea. And this links to groupthink, where a group often goes into one direction, and it's not always the best one, but the whole group follows because that's the one they started off with or they decided on.
I think maybe colleagues, for the sake of time, I see we have another 15 minutes and we all need to run to another meeting. Maybe we can pick what are the most important concepts and discuss those, as I don't want the students to miss out on anything important.
Yes. Thank you, Megan. I think the next part isn't that important. I was going to ask about brainstorming in a group, but we are going to touch on that in class, and some of you have heard about that already in class, so we can definitely skip that one. And then for outcome 4, we're also focusing on that much more in class, the powerful people, so 3%. So I think we can move back to the last bit of your part, Meanda.
Thank you.
I just really want to check some of the questions for your part, Alicia, that we just make sure that we don't miss anything. Someone asked for an example of groupthink, but I think you definitely covered that and you discussed groupthink. And other than that, someone asks about making the examples of the 5 crucial effects of power, examples of those effects in real life. And I think maybe that's a very, very good application question that you can go sit and work out on your own, because these are the type of questions that we will ask you to apply. So maybe think of a certain situation in your life, identify someone who is powerful, and see how these 5 crucial effects actually have an effect on what you are experiencing and what you witness in this powerful person. I know we also discussed this in class a little bit more.
And SIs, please go to SIs, and this is the type of thing you can discuss in SIs. Please, that is the opportunity you have.
I think that is all. We can move back to your part, Meanda. The last part we discussed on yours were stereotypes and the type of stereotypes that people experience in the groups that they belong to. And there were gender stereotypes, there were political and racial stereotypes. And we just discussed a bit of, some people said that the stereotype that blondes are dumb, or women are worse drivers, or the EFF is more violent. So we opened the chat and then we quickly discussed that, and that is where we ended.
Okay, so I quickly just posted the link again. There was a question that talked about, let me share my screen, the link is there, that asks about how much contact you have with members of other groups. So many of these outcomes go into each other, you know, they're not very distinct things. It's about contact, it's about how we feel, it's about what we do, it's about the things that we believe. And this one especially is important in the South African context because we have many different groups in South Africa. And we're going to link this back to an activity in class as well. But if we don't have contact with them, how are we going to change the ideas? Just like Alicia's example. With that contact, she was now able to change her ideas of people with facial tattoos. But it took that contact for her to realize that. And this is the problem that we have in South Africa. Look at the score. Not much. So you have ideas about them, you have feelings about other groups, and yet you do not have that much contact with them. And it's important to take that into account when we reflect on where we are and what we are where we are striving to in South Africa, because we need to seek contact. We need to try to see what the other people are. Okay, so you said you did have some of these. I'll put the link, but we'll quickly then go on. I'm looking at the time. We'll quickly go on to that, but we'll just put it put the link. The first one is about the group ones. So if you mentioned that before, you can just quickly put it there, and then we can move on to the next one.
I think maybe, Meanda, before we carry on, we are busy with outcome 6 right now, and there was a pressing question, a few questions on outcome 5 about the inner processes and prejudice, asking for an explanation of salience.
Salience is very, very easy to answer. It's all about standing out. So salience is what stands out in that situation. So, for example, if you are the only woman in a group of men, then you stand out, you're salient as a woman. And then it's more likely that there will be certain stereotypes and prejudices because the fact that you stand out. And this could be in any group. So again, it links very much to the last chapter where we talk about groups. What is the sense of that group? And is it obvious that you're different? You know, or is it not so obvious? So salience is about standing out, and then that standing out can activate the prejudices, the stereotypes, and even discrimination. Okay, thank you. I'm just gonna share here. I specifically just ask about groups here, and it was interesting to see which people, and I just wanted to mention that before we continue, which group you choose to talk about, because you belong to many groups. So some people are talking about their racial group or their ethnical group. Some people are talking about the fact that they're women or men. So many different people decided on different groups to discuss here. And then the next question here is, especially if we're talking about social media. Now, we are not supposed to say, you know, black people are like this, white people are like this, colored people are like this, but social media allows you to be anonymous and then still express these things. And that is one of the reasons, in my opinion, the research has not been done, I'm busy with it. In my opinion, that's one of the reasons that keep us in this cycle of negative thoughts of other groups. Because we see it, and we learned about cognitive psychology earlier, that the moment we are priming, remember priming, when we are primed with these ideas, those are the ones availability heuristic, available in our mind. And when we see this person, we think of those, and that's activated, and we act in a certain way. And it is important that we consider that. And now that we know this is going to have an influence on us, when you see it on social media, this is going to influence me. Let me make sure that I don't act according to this exposure. But we can also play a role in saying, this is not okay. This is not okay on social media either, because we still expose people to that. Thanks for the ones that answered. And as you can see, most of them said, yes, we do see this. And in the South African context, that is very, very important that we go beyond expressing those things, that we get to a next level. Let me just quickly see which ones I want to do. And I think this one is also very crucial in the South African context, and we'll be very quick with it, but I think it is important. We still have a few minutes. We'll make the most of it. Okay, so the question says, have you blamed other people for failures or problems in your life? I think in South Africa specifically, we like doing that. We like blaming other people. We like blaming apartheid. We like blaming the government. We like blaming all kinds of things. And what this is talking about, thank you, you're honest. Thanks for the honesty. What this is talking about is the fact that as humans, we want to take the praise and the responsibility for whatever went well. Oh, I studied so hard. That's why I did well in the test. And then if you fail, you know, my lecturers, the questions they set, I mean, it's not even related to the book. Did you study? So you'd like to take the responsibility or the praise when it's supposedly good things, but You don't want to take the responsibility when things go wrong. So this is called the self-serving bias and the scapegoat theory. You want to blame someone else. And again, we're going quickly over it, but super important in the South African context, so that we can start to ask ourselves, are we playing that self-serving game? Are we playing the scapegoat game? Or are we saying, okay, let me just be honest. What is it that I can do? What is it that I should have done that I did not do and that could have made a difference? Any questions on that? I think they might have been on self-serving, but then we covered it now.
I think we've covered all the questions in terms of outcome 5. There are 1 or 2 on outcome 6 and 7, but as soon as you have completed your activities, I'll ask them.
Okay, so this question, I posted the link already. This question is asking about your contact. So we're doing a activity in class as well about this, but we have been talking about you must be willing to change this. You must do something. So in the previous Menti we saw, people don't really have contact with other groups. So here the question is, do you want more contact with members of the other groups? I'm so happy to see that the yes is the highest. That is amazing. That's giving me hope for South Africa. The next step, of course, is the willingness is a good start. And then the next step is you must make it work. You must be able to be in that uncomfortable situation where you are not totally at ease with a different group, a member from a different group, and get to know them and go on this road of exploring and get to know the other culture and how they think and how they do things, and experience the journey. It is a fun journey. It's not necessarily easy. Yes, you might be struggling because there might be stereotypes and you might be thinking, what are they thinking about me? What are they expecting from me? I don't understand them. There might be language problems, but it is worth it in terms of that superordinate goal that we spoke about in the beginning. Okay, you said there were questions?
Yes, the first question is related to the jigsaw activity and an example of the jigsaw classroom. They're asking for an example and if they should know it off by heart.
Well, it's not too complicated. It basically means that, and it's used especially to help integrate different types of groups in a classroom. So if you have white people, black people, colored people, Indian people in your class, you make sure that they work together, and that all the groups integrate and they get exposed to the diversity in the class. And according to research, if you have to work in such a way towards a superordinate goal, the chances are better that you will get to know each other and you will be able to address those prejudices. So the detail I'm not going to explain now, but you can just go look at any little video explaining that, so that you understand what the purpose of it is and then how it works in order to help to reduce the prejudices. Okay, the last one I posted, it's on outcome 7. I'm looking at the time, last quick activity. Okay, important. I think I did, yes. Did I post this? No, I don't know whether I posted whether the last one is the one I posted anymore.
I'm posting it. There it is.
Going crazy, yeah. Okay, so the question is, and again, important for South African context, and that's why I wanted to get to it. Do you want to be a victim? It seems like a silly question, but there's a reason why I'm asking it. Everybody's saying no. Really? Isn't this obvious? No. Who wants to be a victim? Somebody's saying yes. Okay, so now let's go on to the next one. Have you ever claimed to be a victim, although you were not really? I'm ill, somebody said earlier. Poor me, I can't do anything. I'm black in South Africa. I'm white, there's reverse discrimination now. I'm the victim, poor me. I need help. Now, the problem with this is that if you are playing the victim card without being the victim, it has an influence on the people who really are victims. and you're using the system and the sympathy. We talked about this in helping behavior. What we are feeling for people who are victims, you are now influencing the way people will in future react to victims, because they will ask, are you really a victim, or are you using that victim card? I think in South Africa, we often play the victim card when it is not the case. I'm not talking about people who are real victims. That is clear cut, but we tend to want to play the victim card when indeed actually it is not the case. Okay, I think that is the final things. Anything on that question? Any questions there? Can we finalize?
The questions were, how do we overcome and address prejudice and discrimination? And we have discussed this in detail on Zoom, and we also discussed this in class. So
yes,
I don't think it's important, yeah.
Yes. Thank you for the ones who stayed this long. We were over time and we had technical problems, but I really hope that you enjoyed social psychology. This is the last Zoom for that. And I hope that you are going to be the change that we need in wherever community you are, whichever campus you are. We saw a certain campus being mentioned earlier. Go be the change there. Spread this knowledge, spread this awareness, share it with your family, your friends, your groups, and let's make the difference in South Africa. Together we can. Superordinate God.
I agree. Thank you so much, everyone. I know, Mianda, you and Alicia need to go, so I'll finish off here. I'll answer all the admin-related questions. I'm going to stop the live streaming now as well. So goodbye for those on YouTube. Thank you for watching. And please remember to attend SI sessions. And then from there on forward, I will just play the outgoing video. All right. Okay.